Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Science with Miss McDermott. Today, we're going to be talking about a few things before we get into our mystery science lesson. First, we're going to review what energy means. Energy is the definition of the ability to do work or make something move, to change in some way. However, it can be described in many different categories. So, for example, things like heat, light, motion, electrical, chemical, nuclear, gravity. There's also potential and kinetic energy. So, we're going to talk about different types of energy to help us understand all of these parts. So let's talk about forms of energy. We have things like electrical energy. That's flowing from a plug or an outlet or a battery. Those would be things like computers, televisions, and your phones and such. You might use energy in the form of light. That's energy that travels in waves of lights. You might have heard of thermal energy. That's when things get hot. So when you're cooking, your stove, your microwave, a fire, there's all different kinds of energy out there. Even sound. Sound is a form of energy. So I want you to think before we start this lesson. Imagine your power is completely out for the day. How would that affect your life? For example, what things would stop working and what things do you lose the ability to do? Don't worry, we're going to get into that more, but just keep that in mind as we look at this next lesson.
Hi, it's Doug. Wait, don't touch that. You've heard that before. This is the thing we're all told from the time we can first walk. Don't touch that outlet. It's dangerous. Don't stick anything in that outlet. Well, okay, except for things that are supposed to be plugged into it. Even then, the first time a kid learns to plug something in properly, parents often feel nervous about it. It's true, there's danger with electricity. You could get really hurt if you messed with an outlet. You could get electrocuted. But the danger of electricity also makes it mysterious, doesn't it? Like, what's back there behind the outlet? Is there like a blue ball of lightning buzzing around? Where does electricity come from? And what is electricity? I mean, did someone invent it? Or has it always been here? You see what I mean? There's so much mystery about electricity. So many interesting questions we can ask about it. Today, let's focus on trying to figure out what electricity is. In order to find out, we have to know more about what electricity does. There's no better way to appreciate what electricity can do than a power outage. You ever had that happen? Sometimes it happens when a storm knocks down an electrical power line. You might be at home, or maybe you're out shopping, and suddenly, oh, the lights are flickering and the power goes out. Now, how is your life different when there's a power outage? Take a moment now and think about what kinds of things you lose the ability to do. Think about all the things that stop working when the power goes out.
Okay, so let's take consideration for a moment. In our mystery science lessons before, we've talked about how we as humans need food to have energy. So, let's say, if we need food to have energy, well, then other things also need to obtain energy to gain energy. For example, my phone. How does my phone get energy? It gets energy from an outlet that charges it. Same thing as your iPad. Your iPad needs energy from the outlet in which it's plugged, so power source it's plugged into in order to gain energy. Well, if all of the energy from electricity wasn't available, well, what would stop working? Well, there's several things that would stop working, in fact. For example, your Wi-Fi would stop working if your electricity went out. That means no internet unless you have a different source. You also would not have the ability to watch television because that would be out. Your outlets wouldn't work. There's things like your computers, your internet would be out. Also, there's other things like your coffee machines and blenders, those wouldn't work. Neither would the microwave or stove or oven. Those things would not work if you didn't have electricity. Well, thinking of that too, your refrigerator doesn't work either. Those things are all plugged in. So things like a washing and drying machine, again, use electricity. They would not work. And what's even crazier is that your heat or air conditioning wouldn't work either because it's all used by electricity. So now I really want you to think. Imagine if the power went out for a week. A whole week it went out. Well, If I had food in my refrigerator for a whole week that wasn't being kept cold or frozen, we might have a bit of a problem. Now, I want you to think, what are some other things that would be a huge problem if you did not have electricity for an entire week? Keep those thoughts in mind as we watch the next part of this lesson.
Every once in a while, there can be a power outage that doesn't just affect a single neighborhood or a town, but instead an entire section of a country, sometimes even more than one country. That's what happened in huge parts of the United States and Canada on August 14th, 2003. Take New York City, for example. Say you were standing here in Times Square with all its billboards and signs. Times Square in New York City might be the most lit up place in the world. But at 4:10 p.m. that day, all those lights went out. And not just the billboard lights. I'm talking about every light in the city. Hallway lights, kitchen lights, office lights. By the time the sun set, most people's homes were pitch black. Even worse, think of all those skyscrapers. At the moment the power went out, if you were in an elevator, guess what? Elevators are powered by electricity. Someone would have to manually come open the elevator doors to let you out. Even if you weren't on an elevator when the power went out that day, soon you might have realized you had other problems. Say that your school or office was some distance from where you lived, and so normally you take the subway to get home. Subways? They're powered by electricity. Well, okay, you think maybe you can just take a taxi or ride a bus home. They're not powered by electricity. Yeah, but guess what is? Traffic signals. When the traffic signals stop working, now everyone has to take turns stopping and letting each car go. That led to huge traffic jams on nearly every street in the city. Now, the power outage wasn't all bad. It could have been worse. Since it was August when it happened, the weather was fairly nice. Imagine instead if it had been the middle of winter with no heat. The heaters in our homes rely on electricity. You'd get so cold. Now, no electricity does mean that refrigerators and freezers stop working too. They're powered by electricity. Many grocery stores and restaurants soon realized if they had any ice cream in their freezers, it was going to melt. So they had to give away all their ice cream. That evening, you might have been stranded at work or school in the total darkness. But at least the first night, you got some free ice cream. Plus, views of the night sky in all its glory. Thousands of stars that normally would be drowned out by bright city lights. That might have been the only good thing about the power outage. To say that electricity is really important in our lives today is to not say it strongly enough. Without electricity, our everyday life basically comes to a complete stop. In some ways, it's like the heart and blood of our society. Electricity keeps so many things going. It's a form of energy. In fact, instead of calling it electricity, really we could say electrical energy. Like any other form of energy, it allows things to be moved, like subways you see here, and elevators and so on. But electrical energy does even more than that, doesn't it? It doesn't just make things move. Based on all the things you heard in this story, take a moment now to stop and think about what's special or unique about electricity as a form of energy. Besides making things move, what else can electrical energy do?
So let's think. Besides making things move, what can electrical energy do? Well, we talked about, again, the refrigerator. So we know it can keep things cold, but it also can warm things up, produce heat. Other examples are if your electricity went out, that means your lights wouldn't work. So electricity can produce light. We saw that. So there's a variety of things that electrical energy can do for us. So, boys and girls, what you're going to do today for your discussion is you're going to tell us what you would miss the most if your power went out. What would you do and how would it affect your life if your power went out? Good luck. You're going to do great. And we will see you all later. Bye, everybody.